Welcome back to the Table Rush Talk Show. I'm your host, Misha Zvagensov. In today's episode, we sit down with a remarkable Vera Thomas, a certified life coach and seasoned author who shares her profound insights on transformative leadership and personal growth. Vera has spent over 4 decades empowering individuals and communities, and today she'll reveal how addressing childhood traumas can lead to healthier, more productive adults, both at home and in the corporate world. Get ready to uncover strategies that can change the very fabric of how we interact in our personal lives and our workplaces. Welcome, Vera, to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here. I am just so honored to be a guest on your show.
Amazing, Vera. Let's just get right into it. You do a couple of things, mostly these days, from what I understand. One is you work with executive teams or corporate teams, and you teach them how to be, I don't know, productive or what have you. You can speak to that in a second. And then as well as you do a lot of work with kids, correct?
Yes, I work with kids and their parents. My career spans across 40 years. So, and my career has been primarily in training and personal and professional development. I have worked with companies, organizations, schools, and churches doing team building, conflict resolution, leadership, communication skills, and just a number of things that are germane to the corporate world. I also developed programs for kids that were in the school systems from 2004 until 2012, when I had to kind of put some things on hold because both my sisters were diagnosed with cancer at the same time, and I needed to be available for them. So I kind of put some things on hold. But I'm back now, and I am excited to be working with children and their parents. I can go into companies, but when you consider the second cause of death for 10-year-olds to 34-year-olds is suicide, parents have got to be more engaged in their children's lives. And when you consider that 64% of adults who have their own unresolved issues, those issues stem from their childhood, abuse, drama, or trauma. And so understanding that, and those same individuals are not only parents, but they're in the workplace as well. And so being able to understand how we oftentimes carry the weight of our childhood into other areas of our lives that impact not only ourselves, but it impacts those around us. Particularly, it impacts our children.
Yes. So if I heard you correctly, your favorite thing to do right now, or what you are impassioned about, or what God's got you doing, is working with kids. Yes?
And kids and their parents.
Kids and their parents. And so
Yeah.
naturally, I think this is something that stands out to me right away. And with what you said, what speaks to this is that, hey, as a parent, we can think, my kid needs help. Let's get our kids in there, right? So you're working with the kids. And in reality, yeah, we got to get the parents in here too.
Absolutely.
Yes, you're bringing a whole lot of baggage. And if you don't think so, you're in denial.
Absolutely. And let me share with you, when my son was 2 years old, I just knew this child had a problem. And I took him to a counselor, right? And so we're sitting there and we're talking. And at the time, I had been a battered wife. And so I had left my marriage, and I was really stressed myself. But I just knew this kid had a problem, right? And so as I'm talking to the counselor, she's asking me, well, what's going on with you? What are you doing? What's happening with you? And when I just poured out, this, that, and the other. And then she looked at me and she said, it's not your kid, it's you. And he's just picking up on your stresses and all the anxiety and things that you have going on. And that's why his behavior is the way that it is. And so I say that to say, parents, a lot of times we may see our kids as just going in all kinds of ways when they're just picking up on what's going on with you as a parent. I actually wrote a poem about that, but I don't know if you're ready to hear that yet or not.
Yeah, let's save it. Let's save it up for a little bit. Let's save it for a little bit.
Okay.
So did you have a successful corporate career for a while, and then your sisters got sick, and
Yeah.
then okay, so maybe tell me, what were you doing corporately before your sisters got sick?
Okay, I was going into companies and doing team building and all the other things that I mentioned. And the way my process was, I would go in, I would have the employees and management complete an anonymous survey. I would then take that survey and customize the training to meet those specific needs. One example, I was a medium-sized company, family-owned company, and the first day I walked in to meet with them, the atmosphere was so thick with negativity. I mean, it was so thick. And you know how you walk in the environments and you can feel stuff? Oh my God, you could have cut it with a knife. And so I met with the owner, who was an older gentleman in his 70s, who had an autocratic leadership style. And with that leadership style, he wasn't getting the productivity that he was wanting, and turnover was rather high. And his son, who was the second in command, he had anger issues. And so he's yelling and, screaming at his employees. And then we've got a coworker. There are three basic personalities that can wreak havoc in the workplace. One is the gossiper. The second is the saboteur. And the third is the agitator. And the agitator is that person that's constantly throwing stones and then hiding behind the cloak. And one of the employees was that type of person. And she was wreaking havoc on the rest of the team. So I did my training opened up with the results from the surveys anonymously. Okay. So I let them know, this is what I'm seeing. This is what's going on according to what you said here in this workplace. Then the department that had the agitator, I had a meeting with them separate and apart. I developed a tool that's called misconceived behaviors. And so I had each person look at those misconceived behaviors from their own personal perspective, but then shared how they saw those misconceived behaviors interacting within the organization. And then we talked about, how do we empower, how do we use assertive communication to get the point across without attacking, but based on facts and evidence. So the group was able to confront this lady with her behaviors from a factual, evidential perspective without saying you. It was more like, when this happened, I felt. And then as a result of them constantly immediately calling her out on her things, it got too hot in the kitchen and she left. I went through some anger assessments with the second in command to get him to begin to look at his behavior and how it was interacting and impacting on his staff. Had him begin to monitor the times when he got angry, and then looked at, okay, so what am I going to do about this? What are some things that I can do to diffuse this anger, remain calm, and speak in a calm tone without yelling? And then the father, the autocratic leader, I just had to share with him how that leadership style was impacting on his staff and gave him the tools to make some changes to become a more participatory, democratic leader. That's one example.
And so there was three personalities that wreak havoc, if I heard you say. The
Yeah,
gossip, the agitator, and I missed the third,
the saboteur.
the saboteur. And so the one lady gets the harsh reality of how she's affecting people, and she leaves. She says, too much for me, or I'm in denial, you're all wrong, or I'm not ready to change. Out the
Right,
door.
right. More,
Right?
I'm not ready to change, but I understand and recognize that I am impacting on you. You know, you made it clear what I've done, and so, yeah.
Yeah, it's a heavy place to be. And God bless her. I mean, I've been there where sometimes the easiest way to go is to leave and start fresh somewhere else and rebuild and change those personality quirks, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, how about the second in command? I love that I mean, if I'm hearing you say it correctly, he heard, and you said he heard what was frustrating people or how he was impacting people, how he was impacting the company. And you said, here's some tools to change. And this is the most impressive thing that you said to me is that he started implementing that. He started looking at, okay, this is at his behavior and how are people reacting to it? Is that what I heard you say?
yes, yes. But not only how it was impacting on his staff, but how that anger was impacting on him as well, because he had health issues, and people don't understand anger and all that bile that's inside of you. It's impacting on you. It's making you, and he had health issues. And so it was not just his impact on his staff, but also the impact that he had on himself.
Mm. It's so powerful. It's such a powerful thing to hear how, I mean, our attitudes, our anger, our internal health, mindset, spiritual grounding, whatever you want to call it, the balance of all that literally can eat us up from the inside and kill us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a book that talks about the behaviors and attitudes that we have and the physical impact that it has on our bodies and our health. For
Mm,
example, hardening of the heart can lead to hardening of the artery, as an example.
mm. So when you say that hardening of the heart, you go through a heavy breakup or something happens in life that breaks your heart. Maybe circumstances don't work out as we hoped, or life can seem harsh to us, and so our heart hardens. We close up. Is that
Yeah.
the way you would say that?
Yeah. We
And so that
close up. We also not only close up, but then hurt people hurt people. So that hardening of the heart is also being not as empathetic or compassionate as one would have been had they not gone through the things that they went through that led them to having a hardened heart.
yeah, and so not only are we being toxic towards the outside environment, the people around us, the people, places, and things around us. But that hardening heart is literally manifesting as a hardening heart, where your arteries are hardening and you're going to have a heart attack and die sooner, perhaps, than you would want.
Yeah.
Or it can lead to cancer or things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there is so much proof out there, little literal scientific
Yeah.
proof. And you talked about a book that proves that talks to that our attitude will kill us if we
Absolutely.
yeah or help us
Absolutely.
thrive and shine, right?
Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
for example, both my sisters, and they were both younger than me. One was 3 years younger, the other was 7 years younger. And they both worried about everything and everybody. And that they had cancer, but when you are feeding that cancer with worry, with doubt, with fears, with all those things, you can't help but be sick. And I remember we were on a three-way telephone conversation, and almost simultaneously, they both said, "Why can't we be more like Vera? She doesn't worry about anything." And I said, I used to have a sign on my refrigerator that said, "Why worry if you're going to pray? Why pray if you're going to worry?" And also the serenity prayer, accept the things I cannot change. Change the things I can and know the difference. If there's something going on with other people, particularly perhaps their kids, if something's going on with your kids and they're grown behind kids, making choices that they have to suffer the consequences for, why are you worried?
I love that. I see so many people, adults with adult children,
Yes.
that are just fighting with their kids. And it's like, let them live their life, embrace it, support them. Right? Why you
Exactly.
them? It's crazy.
Exactly. And allowing them to accept responsibility for the choices that they are making. Be there to be supportive, but don't worry about it because they made the choice. They're grown folk,
I do know. And I think what's so interesting about that is that as parents, our egos can be so wrapped up in on how we think our kids are reflecting on us. Right. And I remember when I had that stark reality of why do I get upset about Waylon I think he was 10. I have two sons, Cooper and Waylon. They just are turning 21 and 23 right now. But back in the day, they were 7, 8, 9, or 10 or whatever it was. Right. And I would get so mad about Waylon not being able to get his homework done in a timely manner or in the way I thought or as good as I thought. And he was still trying to figure out school in hindsight. And I remember when he told me a couple of years later, he's like, "Oh, school just clicked for me all of a sudden." But anyway, in that moment of third, fourth, or fifth grade where he's frustrated and it's not making sense and I'm fighting with him, "Get your homework done," yelling, and he's crying and sobbing, "Dad, I just need a hug." Right. And I'm swearing I won't yell again. And then we go through that cycle again. And it forced me, well, I'll be totally vulnerable with you. I had just moved in, I was divorced, and we did a Brady Bunch style family. This lovely woman, Kat was her name. Kat moves in with her two daughters. I've got my two boys. And she just moved in and she sees me fighting with my son about homework. And she sees that the punishment doesn't fit the crime, right? Like my outburst of anger it doesn't make sense. And I saw her like, what have I got myself into? And I hate to admit it, but I was like, oh my gosh, this has to stop today. And so I started really digging into it and praying and meditating. And the idea if anger is fear, right? Anger is the inverse of fear. And so I started thinking, like, what is my fear? Like, what's my fear? What is the fear that's causing me to get so angry? And it turned out to be completely selfish. And I'll admit it right now to everybody, that I was worried about how my son would reflect on me as a father. So I always wanted to be able to say, my son's getting the best grades. He's going to get a scholarship. He's the star soccer player, whatever this thing was. So it was my own ego. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
yes, it does.
Yeah. And so I had that stark reality of like, I need to let go, just like you said, the acceptance prayer, right? New levels of awareness. And I was a great dad, supportive, all these things.
Yes, you were.
Of course, but, being willing to change. But I remember, and I'll try and cut to the chase with the story because this is about you and not about me, but it supports what you're talking about.
Right.
I had been encouraging, Waylon, you got to have your sport, you got to have your activity, you got to have this, you need to have your 30 minutes of activity every day. And of course, I wanted him to be a soccer star or a swim team captain. So when people said, "What's your son do?" I could be like, "Oh, he's the swim team captain," or whatever, right? And so he comes to me one day and he goes, "Dad, you've had me in swimming lessons for 3 or 4 years or 5 years or whatever it was." And he's like, I really just don't like it, and I'm not going to grow to like it. Because I was always like, you'll grow to like it. Let me just say, too, he's an amazing swimmer. He's so grateful that he learned how to swim. He can swim in the ocean. He's a powerful swimmer, but he's grateful. But anyway, he comes to me and he goes, Dad, I know you want me to have a half hour activity every day. And he goes, it turns out walking home from school takes me a half an hour. How about if I walk home from school? And I was like, that doesn't satisfy my ego at all, but okay.
Wow.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so the very next day, I bump into somebody and they go, what do your kids do? And I'm like, Waylon walks home from school. There you go. Sorry to hijack the conversation.
Oh, no, this is important. This is great. This is great because I work with fathers and you sharing that story is great. One of the things when we know better, we do better. And doing that introspection of the impact that you were having on your son, but the impact you were having on yourself as well with that anger, and yelling. Parents don't recognize, I talk about yelling because parents don't understand the impact that yelling has on a child. It can cause anxiety, depression, panic attacks, stomach aches, headaches, reclusiveness. It can cause so many problems, and parents don't recognize. And I don't get it twisted. I'm not saying I never yelled at my son, but when we know better, we do better. And then we learn how to calm ourselves because we can tell when we're getting riled up. We can tell, we can feel it. So we can learn how to calm ourselves so that we're talking in a normal tone to our children rather than yelling at them. The impact that yelling has is just, even teachers, I've had teachers tell me that they know, they can tell the difference between a child that's been yelled at constantly and a child that has not, that's in their class. Studies show that our brain waves change from whether we are yelled at constantly or not. It changes it does something to our brains as well. It's a major issue.
It's a major issue, and we know better now as well. Anybody listening or watching can't say, well, I grew up in the 40s or 50s, or my parents were a product of the 40s or 50s, and that's how we used to blah, blah, blah. No, we know more now that kind of generational toxicity is not okay.
It's not okay.
It's not okay.
It is not okay.
I think what's so interesting too is that the hard part for me is my whole life, generally speaking, I've been on a growth trajectory. I'm a sensitive guy, and I got clean and sober at a very young age, 17 years old, and I've stayed sober one day at a time since. But part of that being clean and sober are the 12-step modalities of that community. It's trust in God, clean house, work with others. And so that clean house bit is, okay, I'm aware that I'm yelling at my kids and it's not okay. I've got to stop. And so my whole life has been, sanding off those rough edges and growing and trying to be better and out of life necessity. And I don't mean to say it in a way that my brother is an amazing, amazing man. And he doesn't even have to work at it. Right? He's like, he doesn't have to, he has normal issues that everybody does, but like, I needed to be reminded, like, it's not okay to be a prick. And he's like, he just knows it's not okay to be a prick. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm not trying to say I can sometimes sound like grandstanding or something or holier than thou. So I'm not trying to say that, but, where was I going with this? And I think you speak to all of these things because I know you are so of service, and we're going to dive into how you are of service, which I think leads to, where was I going with this rant? Anyway, I've totally lost track, but yeah, what I was trying to say was, slowly growing. And so I have awareness where that yelling was almost addictive, compulsive, right? Where I'm like, where we have an outburst towards a loved one, and we say, I'm sorry, I won't do that again. And then we do it again. It's like this compulsive behavior. And so
Mm-hmm.
how do we break that cycle of compulsive behavior, even if you know? And so I think that this is where I was trying to go with this. But that moment in time with Waylon, it was like that was the last big rough edge for me as far as that was a triggering point. I could be calm everywhere else, but when it came to that damn homework, or people can be driving their cars and lose their minds and put their
Yes.
lives at risk.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
we're too old for that. Anyway, I love what you're talking about. Go ahead. I've talked way too much, so
No,
go.
but the thing is, and this is what, when I first met you, I just admired you so much because of your stance with your children. Now, Waylon felt comfortable enough to tell you how he felt.
Mhm.
There are so many parents that don't get that because their children have reservations about expressing how they feel because of maybe how their parent may react, relate, or respond. And
Mhm.
so your child having the wherewithal to trust that he could come to you and talk to you, that says so much. And for you to be able to take into account and pay attention to what he was saying and then alter your thinking so that you were accommodating his need. And so that's what parents are supposed to do. But
Mhm.
so many parents don't do that because they don't understand, one, that they need to, two, how to. So
Mhm.
becoming aware, awareness precedes change. And when we know better, we do better. And of course, Angela, Maya Angelou said that. When we know better, we do better. So
I,
that,
I
go ahead.
Yeah, good. No, amazing. And thank you for that. And I where I want to go with this, and we don't need to go there at this second, but I was thinking, I know what you do and I know how you're of service, and I know you're so passionate about what you do, and you bring this healing to families, to kids, to parents, to communities, and some of the things that you have done have been extremely impactful. And a lot of it out of the goodness of your heart, or pure service. I'm not getting paid for this, right? You're just being of service to the community. Um, that was like, how are we going to translate that to the Table Rush Talk Show, which is so much about entrepreneuring, right? And I think what happens is entrepreneurs, or we're trying to build businesses, like you and I are, we've been through a lot of life experience. So we get to reemerge. I get to reemerge as somebody who's like, I'll help you guest speak on podcasts. And you're like, hey, I'll help you heal your family, get your, heal your kids, heal you, or however you will say that. Um, but we can use that as an excuse for bad behavior, right?
Right.
Like being an entrepreneur is stressful.
Yes.
There's a lot of uncertainty. There's lots
Yes.
of ups and downs. There's
Yes.
lots of letting go of identities. There's lots of rebirth, and all that can be painful and
Yes.
stressful. And
Yes.
and so are we projecting that out onto our loved ones? Right. I think and that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, oh, there's going to be some opportunity to kind of talk about that. But anyway, go ahead. Maybe you can riff on that. Or
Absolutely. When you consider, and with entrepreneurs, it's even more so, but we have 24 hours in our day. If you are working and you're a leader or a manager, or an entrepreneur, more than a third of your day is consumed with work, either as an entrepreneur or in an establishment. If your attitudes or behaviors or pressures and stresses are so overwhelming, it's going to impact on how you relate to yourself, how you relate to your families, how you eat, how you sleep, All of those things are impacted by that pressure, particularly as an entrepreneur, particularly because you know, and especially if you're a solo entrepreneur, because everything falls on you. Everything falls on you. And you've got children on top of that. And so being able to understand, and that's why that self-care is also so important, to be able to sit back, relax, calm yourself, before. And one of the things I encourage before you even move into the next phase of being with the family, decompress, calm yourself, reflect on what's happened, but then move on. Don't take your work into your home with your kids. They need your time. They need your attention. And that's what is so important. It is so important. And it's not how much time, but the quality of that time is so important. So important. And so, and James Michener had a quote that just amplifies all of this. He says, the master in the art of living draws no distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education or his recreation, his love or his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence through whatever it is he's doing and leaves it to others to determine whether he's working or playing. To himself, he's always doing both. So as an entrepreneur, as a solo entrepreneur, if you're walking in your purpose and your passion and you're doing what God has ordained you to do, then even the pressures and the stressors should not impact on how you deal with your children.
Mm-hmm. Just letting that sink in for a sec. So powerful. Let's go back to this company that you're helping. The one lady leaves, the second in command internalizes what he's learned and starts making positive changes, which is amazing.
Yeah.
The father, you give him some tools. What does he do with the tools? Does he start utilizing them, or was he like, no, too much for me?
Well, let me first say you're either green and growing or ripe and rotten. And so if you're, in talking with him, I must say, because him and I met him through a BNI group that I was with, okay? And so we were able to establish a friendship. So as a result of me being able to share with him, and coming from the heart, not trying to belittle or criticize or anything like that, but to help him look at the difference between being an autocratic leader and the impact that it has, and then moving into a democratic leader. Now, of course, it did not happen overnight. For me to sit here and say, oh, I told him to do this and just like that, and he did it. No, it took time. But when he found himself moving into that autocratic mode of communication, he caught himself. And so he began to make changes, but it was not an overnight process. We don't become the way we are just like that. So we cannot expect to change just like that. It takes time and practice and affirming and constantly doing what it is that you need to do to improve yourself over and over and over again. Just like the yelling thing, recognizing, when I recognized the impact that yelling was having. And, and then when I catch myself getting ready to do it again, sometimes I won and sometimes I didn't, but it was a constant daily job. You have to work on yourself every day, every day. It's
every day.
Job.
It's a daily thing. We're starting fresh every day.
Every day.
Every day. And boy, to find mentors and to be willing to build habits that help with that is so powerful. So this business, were you able to see tangible results, a year after, 3 months after, two months after?
I definitely follow that. I followed out. I did a 30-day follow-up and a 60-day follow-up. And in that 30 days, they were still, moving towards it, still doing it, and the things that I needed the second in command to do for his anger, that was something he had to work on every single day. It wasn't like, okay, here's this training. This is what she said, and I'm going to do it now, but I'm not going to continue. No, you have to do this every single day, and also begin to look at, why am I so angry? What is causing me to be so angry? And it could have been from past, hurts and experiences. And, it could have been because his father was autocratic. I mean, it could have.
I'm stuck in this company. Hey, so before your sisters get sick, and boy, to have younger sisters get sick like that before you, and I think you said they both passed, yes?
Yeah, they both passed.
Yeah, what a thing. What a thing, man. My condolences, obviously, and
Thank you.
what a thing to go through. I have an older brother, and we're now in our mid to late 50s, and so sometimes I'm like, man, to have, after both of my parents had passed 10, 12, 15 years ago, it's like, yeah, to have a sibling, my ex-wife, Dawn, the boy's mom, Dawn's an amazing woman, her brother passed away when I think he was 17 and she was 19 or something like that.
Mhm.
And
Oh.
I never, until my parents passed, I never really was able to understand the the emotional ramifications of that. Of I don't know why I'm just talking about this, but I just think that sometimes perspective can be an amazing thing.
Yes.
So anyway, you build this business before your sisters get sick, and you leave that business. So you're relatively successful at it. Are you a solopreneur through this whole time, or are you working as a consultant for a consulting company, or what's?
No, I was a solopreneur, consultant, independent contractor, doing the work that I was doing before they got sick. My mother, she passed away at the age of 44 from cancer as well. So my mother, both my sisters, and right after my sisters, my niece, my brother's oldest daughter, she ended up with cancer and passed away at the age of 38. Both my sisters were in their 50s, and here I am, 70, and still trying to go,
Yeah. So it's so interesting. There's so much to talk about there. But you're relatively successful as a solopreneur, coaching businesses and helping businesses. I'm assuming you had a successful career doing that.
successful. But what I have to, and let me be transparent.
Yeah.
I've done this work. I have not really made a whole lot of money, but where success is concerned, I see results.
Yeah.
And so being able to see results from the work that I do.
Yeah.
At that point in time was the most important thing. And it still is very, very, very important. I want to see results. However, at this stage in my life, I also need to reap some benefits from the work that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, well, you had said something interesting that I wanted to cue off of, was that you had met this company that you had helped through a BNI group, which is business networking and
international.
And so I guess, you that's how you built your business, or other ways that you built. So you networked through BNI. You network with your church, I'm assuming. You networked, got referrals, things like that. Yeah.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, I've done leadership training in churches as well. So that was a part of some of the things that I did, working with the leaders in the church to help them look at the type of leader that they are, and then are they team players, because you have all kinds of dynamics in the workplace as well as in the church.
Yeah.
And so being able to help make them aware of even their behaviors, even though as Christians, we're supposed to be a certain way, but not everybody, not everybody is there yet. You know what I'm saying? You got to work on it. You got to work on it.
We're all human.
We're
Turns
all
out.
human. None of us are perfect. Absolutely. And, I work on myself daily. It's a daily job.
Amazing. And 70 and vibrant and full of life and passion, and it shows. And this willingness to work on yourself, take accountability, and then you serve at a high level. And I think you spoke to that where you said, hey, you've paid the bills with what you do, I'm assuming, obviously, but perhaps it hasn't showered riches upon you, but you've been able to serve at a high level. And ultimately, I have found that that's what keeps us young, keeps us
I agree.
vibrant, virile, right? All these sorts of things. And so I think your glow speaks to that right now. So amazing. So thank you for that. Yeah.
And I'm not on any medications.
And oh my gosh. Right. That's another thing. Me either. And the industrial medical complex is trying to get us on medications.
Yes.
It really is. The marketing of it. It's proliferated to such an extent.
Yes. Yes. And the thing that gets me, one of the reasons that I really steer clear of medications is on these commercials. They tell you all the effects that this medication can have on the good side. But then you hear all these other risk factors that could lead to death. And I'm like, why would I take medicine that's going to cause me to die? Why would I do that?
So crazy.
It's a vicious circle. And I know people that are on 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 different prescriptions that they take every day. I'm like, oh no, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God for my doctor, because I have an Indian doctor. And there was a point in time where there was some concern that my blood pressure might be high. And she was like, well, Vera, you may have to go on medication. I was like, no, I need you to tell me what else can I do to lower my blood pressure without medication. And she said, well, she's from India. And she said, one of the staples in our diet is turmeric. So if you start taking that, it should help with your blood pressure. So that's what I started doing. So a lot of times these doctors will fuel taking medications. But I just thank God my doctor, she understands I don't want medicine. So tell me other alternatives,
Yeah. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate that so much. I'm the same way. I cashed in my ticket to medications by abusing them in my teen years, right? So I get clean and sober. And now I'm very like any pill, anything to fix a problem or make you feel better or solve a problem. I'm like, I gotta find, do I need to walk more? Do I need to jog a little bit? Do I need to eat better? Do I need to pray more? Do I need to take, do I need to be of service? Do I need to clean out some baggage in my life? Do I have some things left over that I need to take accountability for? That's what I'm trying to do. And I think service is such a great way to heal and find joy in life. But your sisters pass away. It's time to reemerge, and this passion for kids and parents. And is that what you focus on these days, is helping kids and parents?
It's so needed. That is, I personally feel that is an area that is so needed. And if parents get things right in the home, then it will help to impact in the workplace as well.
You have this. Go ahead. Sorry.
I have no problems going into companies, but I realize that the bulk of what is needed is family. I mean, that's where my heart, purpose, and passion is right now.
I was looking at your YouTube channel. Anybody can go check it out. The Vera Thomas Show. So YouTube at Vera Thomas Show, or just type in Vera Thomas Show. But you have an amazing testimonial from a couple of young kids on there, maybe more
You
than
read
one.
that? Let me tell you
I
about
did.
those kids.
Yeah.
When they came to me, the little boy had no confidence, and he wants to be a speaker, and he has a speech impediment. And so when he came to me, he was so self-conscious about his speaking, but yet again, he wants to be a speaker. And so we've worked, and I gave them tools and affirmations and all of those things, and, just really worked with them. We worked once a week. I'd have our meetings and then give them assignments, and they come back the next week having done them. We practice speaking and all of those kinds of things. And by the end of the time that I was working with them, he had the confidence to do that video with his sister.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful video. Anybody go to at Vera Thomas Show on YouTube and check it out.
Thank you.
Yeah. So parents with kids, entrepreneur parents with kids that are maybe feeling some tension in the house,
Yes.
that's a person that you could help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Single parents, couples, that are really struggling, or maybe feeling overwhelmed, or maybe feeling like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my children. I don't know how to communicate with them. And because younger minds are more pliable, and when you consider, as a matter of fact, one of my guests, she focuses in on from infant, before you're born, all the way up to like 3-year-olds. She's got them saying their ABCs and doing all this stuff. It's like amazing because the mind is more pliable and receptive to learning between the ages of infant up through the age of 5. And so I like working with kids from 4 years old up through age 12. But I have worked with teenagers and, as well. But I feel the greater impact can be when we're working with these younger children.
Amazing. And everybody, again, at Vera Thomas Show on YouTube, you can click on her contact links. Anybody watching YouTube, or everybody in the world at this point, is clearly familiar with YouTube, but you've got your bit.ly links and your contact links there, so people can see what you do by clicking on those links or reach out to you there. There's a couple of forms that people can reach out to you with, and things like that.
Yes. And I have a free gift of it's a PDF article on how to keep your child from being a bully. And so there are some tips and advice and things of that nature for those parents. And even if you're thinking your child might be a bully, you want to read that article.
Awesome. And is there a direct link for that you
it's
can tell
in
me?
that bit.ly.
Yep.
It's in there.
Okay, good.
It's one of the things in the bit.ly. There's also a petition in that bit.ly that I would love for people to sign. It is regarding cyberbullying of YouTube creators and everybody else. The goal is to have 100,000 signatures so I can take it to Congress, so Congress can look at more stringent policies and rules for cyberbullying. Right now, their focus is on kids and cyberbullying, but adults are experiencing this as well. And so that petition is for that purpose, and to also contact Google and YouTube for them to be more enforcing of the policies they have and to also perhaps create more stringent ones.
Love it. Amazing. Go to at Vera Thomas Show on YouTube, click on the bit.ly links on the bit.ly, and then the petition is there. The how to keep your child from being a bully PDF is there. Before we go, there's two things I want to speak to. The first one is you were telling me how. So, everybody listening and watching, Vera, you are amazing. You need to know how amazing Vera is, uh, involved with her church, involved with her community. But you did this thing within the last number of years. Uh, you were involved with a fatherhood initiative, and this
Yes.
was in Cleveland, Ohio,
Well,
and you
it was in Canton, Akron, Canton area.
Canton. Okay, great. Canton, Ohio. Hey, the Super Bowl just got done, so everybody knows about the Hall of Fame,
That's
Canton,
always
Ohio.
there.
And then you did the Father's Walk program, and within 5 years, you had 10,000 fathers walking their kids to school. Maybe
Yes.
just tell us a little bit about that program and
Okay.
in 3 to 5 minutes, and what do you
Okay.
want to say about it? Or
Not a whole lot of time. Let me be quick.
yeah.
Okay. Cleveland had been doing the Father's Walk. So they contacted my pastor, who was the founder of the Fatherhood Initiative, to incorporate with what they were doing. So he contacted me and said, Vera, I want you to pull this together. I had 3 weeks to try to get fathers into schools. The very first one, I was able to get 17 schools and 500 dads. The second one, I was able to get 2,400 dads. The third one, 4,000 dads. The fifth one, 6,000 dads. And then the last one I did, we had close to 10,000 dads that took their children to school. And it not just dads, but male figures for kids that may not have a father, ministers, politicians, uncles, fathers, brothers, took kids to school on a given day. The kids would have breakfast with that meal. And then the school would talk to the fathers about how they could be more involved and engaged in their children's education. And then the third piece was the fathers, after all of that, congregated together to talk about their issues and to talk among themselves. And so that program ran, and to see these kids light up, so proud that they're being walked to school or even driven to school by their father or their uncle or their grandfather or a minister or a politician. To see these kids, I mean, I have pictures where you can literally see these kids beaming from that experience.
So beautiful. I'm thinking of the butterfly effect or the ripple effect of those individual days where you've got 4,000 fathers, then 6,000 fathers, or male figures, politicians, ministers, uncles, brothers, dads, the father figure, the what have you, and just that ripple effect. But then I'm also thinking of those 10,000 fathers on that day, how many were inspired to commit to keep doing that, and just it's beautiful. So thank you for that, and thank you for your service. And again, I want to highlight how anybody listening to this and perhaps not watching this, how you are just a light at 70 some years old. How old are you? Sorry.
I'm 70.
70.
I'll be 71 this year, towards
And
the end of the year.
Yeah, and just passionate, and it sounds cliche, but truly living your best life, and inspiring, and you just make me feel good, and yeah. So thank you for that. Right? You just are. I'm trying to think of the word. It's like I feel like the kid that their dad just brought them to school, you know?
Oh, and what? I know we're running out of time, but I have written a poem for fathers that I really want to share. And it's a tribute to you as a single dad as well. I wrote this, and the city of Akron actually commissioned it and gave it to every dad. that took their child to the zoo this one Father's Day weekend. Father, provider, protector, role model for a son, the image of the man that will be the husband of your daughter when that time comes. What's best for your children should be concern number one, regardless of any obstacles a father must overcome. Sometimes the injustices of our society towards many of our fathers can make it hard to stand, but you gotta stand and be a man and a father to your children in every way you possibly can. Demonstrate their worth through you by the words that you say and the things that you do. Don't ever put your children down or call them out of their name. They may become whatever you claim. Lift them up to higher ground. Let their inner beauty be seen, be found. Show them and tell them how special they are. Be the light. Be the light. Be the light to take them far. Show them and tell them how much you really care and let them know no matter what, you will always, in all ways, be there. Pray that our fathers will be guided by the light to lead their children in the ways that are right.
Beautiful, Vera. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mm.
And there were so many other things that we could have talked about.
Oh my
because, you know, the fatherhood initiative where we, you know, really did an assessment of those organizations that are not very father friendly. And you and I talked about even your own experience, but I know we're running out of time. So we'll do that. You're on my show. And what, next week or is it?
Next week.
Okay.
Next week. I think so. I've got it on the calendar. Yeah.
I think it's next week. So Miss, I haven't said your name because I don't want to mispronounce it.
Misha.
Okay. Misha is going to be on my show next week. So tune in. And please like, subscribe, and
Follow.
And follow. Thank you. Follow. Yes. Like, subscribe, and follow the Vera Thomas Show on YouTube.
Amazing.
I'm excited about you coming to me. I am, because we're going to talk about you and what you've done. And I'm just excited. This has been an exciting experience.
Indeed, Vera. It's so much fun, and I can't wait to be on your show. And oh my gosh, we are gonna let it rip. It is gonna be amazing.
Yes.
It's gonna be good, and we're gonna talk about what it's like to be a single father, obviously, and how perhaps a single father can thrive in spite of the system or circumstances, right? How we can take accountability and really just be good dads.
Yes. Absolutely. I can't wait. I cannot wait. It's one of my favorite topics.
So good. Oh my gosh, you're going to make me look so good. I cannot wait.
Yes. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, everybody. So everybody, YouTube at Vera Thomas Show, VeraThomas Show. Check it out. Check out Vera. Check out what she's up to. Click on her links. If you're an entrepreneur and there's some tension between you and your kids, or you have concerns about your kids or what have you, by all means reach out to Vera and let's heal, huh?
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
I'm going to hit stop and we'll say goodbye offline. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.